Hey, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co., and this is Where Are They Now?, where I'm going to take a look at the last 5 years of playing board games in general, picking specific games out of every single November for the past 5 years. Starting off in 2018, we're going to pick 4 games over here, and again, in general, these are just picking specific games that I've played, talking about how my thoughts have changed over the years. Usually I try to pick games that have had some degree of evolution past I played it and I moved on from it, but let's go ahead and find out, starting off with Reef in November 2018. Reef was a two-player, was it two-player? I think it was specifically, now I'm trying to remember if it was two-player only. I don't know if it was two-player only, it may not have been. It may have been more players. I think I may have only played a two-player, or maybe I played with more, it's been so long. But Reef is a little tactical abstract game of placing little tokens down onto this reef in order to create certain patterns from it. To a certain extent, it was compared to games like Azul, but for me it didn't last the same way Azul did. I kept Reef around for several months. I enjoyed it. It's certainly fun. It has a visual appeal. It's a game, I think it was from the same creators as Azul, or the same company. It's been so long. Maybe it was Next Move, Plan B. I don't remember. But I remember that I enjoyed Reef, but also that it didn't stick with me the way some games do. In general, I find games are often in 3 main core categories. The games I don't need to play again, the games I want to play again and will hold on to some degree of time, and then the games that actually stick around. And Reef was definitely that middle category. I enjoyed it, I'm happy I kept it, I'm happy I played it a bunch, and then it did move on from me. In 2018 of November again, we played Mansions of Madness 2nd Edition. And by we, I mean me. I played Mansions of Madness 2nd Edition solo for the first time. I tried it out. I wanted to give it a shot. I knew I didn't like the Lord of the Rings Journeys in Middle-earth, and I knew they were compared, but I wanted to still try Mansions of Madness, and so try it I did. I hated it. I absolutely hated it. I couldn't get into it. I did not like it one bit. I thought it was so tedious and I did not enjoy it at all. And we will talk about it more later this video. But that is one that was not for me. It's a well-loved game. It's a top 100 game. People love it so much. It's like an 8.2 on BGG. And for me, it was just not a game that I enjoyed in any way, shape, or form. I felt it was completely random. It was app-driven. It felt like I was just doing whatever the app said. And then, well, I mean, many games have that to a degree, but I didn't get anything out of the experience of Mansions of Madness. It was not a game for me. Then I played A Feast for Odin. A Feast for Odin, which is a game that I played maybe twice, I want to say, in 2018, November, and then I moved on from it. I said like it was a good game. I enjoyed it. Actually, I don't think I got rid of it right away. I think I kept it for several months. I had a fully sleeved copy with some premium insert, whatever it was. I had traded for it. I enjoyed the game. I thought it was fun, but then I just kind of had the feeling that it wasn't as much a game that I was going to dive into. And so it did eventually leave my collection and didn't return for several years. We're talking about it here today because, well, it's back. It's a game that I gave it another shot again in WSBG 2022, I want to say. Board Game Dave, we ran into Board Game Dave at WSBG. He taught me how to play the game again, or not really taught me, I know how to play. He refreshed me on how to play the game, and then dove into a game, and I really enjoyed it. I think this is one of those times where it comes down to who you're playing the game with and whether they're enjoying it as much, because it totally changed for me. And in fact, it's a game that I then proceeded to play again and again and again. And I got the expansion, and I played it on solo, I played it on BGA, I played it in so many different forms and formats. I did a full 12x12 review of the game. I think Feast for Odin is absolutely fantastic, and it's a game that I passed on, which has happened to me in other games, by the way. Everdell, one of my favorite games of all time, is a game that left my collection once upon a time. These things do happen. Before we take coffee, let's do the last game in 2018, which is Codenames Duet. Codenames Duet I played for the first time in November 2018, and it's one that I play this game all the time. This game's gotten play, like, I don't know, 10 plays this past month. This gets regular, consistent, ongoing plays. I once did a video of 10 games I would keep if I could only keep 10 games ever, and if I recall correctly, Codenames made that list because it should make that list. It is so much fun. It is so variable. It hits that party genre. It is, Codenames in general is one of my favorite games, and Codenames Duet I find gets more play than Codenames does, at least for me. And so that is 2018. In 2019, we have Domaine. Domaine is a game that I actually played for the very first time, very early on in my gaming hobby. I was going to say career, but I guess it's both. It's career and hobby. And I think Domaine's fantastic. It's from Donald X. Lexarino, designer of, Settlers of Catan. But that's Klaus-Tober. No, it's from Klaus-Tober. Domaine's from Klaus-Tober. I'm confusing Kingdom Builder. Klaus-Tober designed Domaine, and Domaine I think is my favorite game from him, I think. I like it more than Catan, almost certainly. I think Domaine is fantastic. The biggest issue Domaine has, it is a little victim to a runaway leader. A player who manages to get the lead in Domaine is unfortunately going to hold on to that lead a little more strongly than I'd like, which is why eventually it did leave. But it's a game that I had in my collection. I got it back at one point, and then I got rid of it. But I've played Domaine dozens of times. I've enjoyed it over the years a lot. And I want to say 2019 might have been the last time I played it. It might have left. I vaguely recall it leaving shortly before the pandemic, or either that or doing COVID. I don't remember exactly, but I remember somewhere in that range left. So maybe this was the last play I had of it. I don't know. But I think Domaine is an excellent game to hunt down if you can find a copy. I think it's one of those games I'd love to see tweaked and redesigned. I'd love to see like a re-implemented deluxe version of Domain. I'd love to see Awakened Realms, because like the game has walls and horses. It has all the kinds of things that I think would fit into a deluxeified board game. But I'd love to see a company like Awakened Realms pick it up, deluxeify the game, tweak some rules. I think it could benefit from some small degree of rule tweaking, but it is otherwise a very streamlined, very excellent game that I definitely recommend. Sword and Sorcery, I played in 2019, and that was a bust for me. I remember playing it. Did I play it for the first time in 2019? That couldn't be. That couldn't be. I remember reading the rules on a flight to Argentina, which was pre-COVID. I guess maybe my last flight to Argentina was in 2019. That's possible. That also means Domain probably left in 2020, if I want to think about that. I don't know for sure. But either way, Sword and Sorcery, I read through the 60-page rulebook on a flight to Argentina, and prepped for it, and then sat down and played it, and gave it like 2 or 3 dungeons, and then moved on from it. I found that while I enjoyed things that Sword and Sorcery was doing, I like other dungeon crawlers better, and they don't have as much rules and management and all these other things going on. Like Sword and Sorcery is a game that was rumored at one point to have a Taboo implementation coming, and that's one I think would benefit strongly from a Taboo implementation. I think it could do really well from having the board control the enemies as opposed to you having to go through a giant AI card while knowing a ton of other rules. And overall, Sword and Sorcery is a very popular game. It has a giant fan base. Ultimately, for me, is one that I saw why people could like it, but I just felt I have other dungeon crawlers that are more streamlined that I'd rather play. There's also The Rise of Queensdale. Played this in 2019 as well, which it's weird to me. I think, again, this is one of those things where I'm just thrown off by the years. I feel like I played Rise of Queensdale earlier than 2019, but I've only played it once. I mean, by once, I mean it's a legacy game. I've only played through the whole thing once. But that's one that I really enjoyed. I compare it a lot to Charterstone and the general feel that both those legacy games give you. And I recommend both of them. I think Rise of Queensdale I prefer a bit more, while Charterstone I think is a bit more charming. But both of them are fantastic games, and the Rise of Queensdale, if you're looking for a legacy game, like I just finished playing through Legends of the West, Ticket to Ride Legends of the West, and it's a fantastic legacy game, and it reminds me of the sense of discovery I've gotten from legacy games before. My City and My Island, as much as I enjoy playing those, they don't have the same sense of discovery that I find other legacy systems have had, like Pandemic Legacy, like Charterstone, like Rise of Queensdale, and like Ticket to Ride Legends of the West. There are good legacy games, there are great legacy games. My City is a great game that I really recommend, but it's one that I recommend more for the general sense of a quick, fast, easygoing, easy to play game that plays in half-hour sessions, versus I think that other ones do a better job at the legacy sense of unlocking things. And so Rise of Queensdale, definitely one I recommend, and definitely one I'd be happy to play again. I think a bunch of these legacy games I'm already ready to dive back in. I'm ready to dive back into, the Rise of Queensdale, to dive back into Charterstone, to maybe give Pandemic Legacy Seasons 1 and 2 and 0 and a third shot or a fourth shot. I want to dive into and play all these experiences. In 2019, we also have Coimbra. Coimbra is fantastic. It has continued to hold up for me. I'm surprised it doesn't have an expansion, but I also think I like it more than the general public does. Coimbra is often, to me, the bar of when I'm thinking of good midweight Euro games, and when I play something new, I'm often weighing it up against Coimbra. Hey, I just played Apiary. Would I play that or Coimbra? Honestly, I'd pick both, so they're both great games. Hey, I just played, Expeditions. Would I play that or Coimbra? Expeditions is actually more vying for Vindication, so forget that one. I just played, I don't know, what's another one? Alma Mater. I just played Alma Mater. Should I play that or Coimbra? Alma Mater is fantastic. You know what the problem is? It plays twice as long as Coimbra and doesn't give me a better experience than Coimbra. So I'll just play Coimbra. I often find, again and again and again, that Coimbra is the bar that I hold other midweight Euros up against when I'm thinking of, will I actually table you? Will I bring you to the table, or will I just play Coimbra? Obviously, it's not just Coimbra. I have a lot of games. I have Gollum. I have Grand Austria. I do have Grand Austria Hotel, but I need to play that one again. That's one's still in the middle zone. I have, I don't know, what do I have? I have Lorenzo Magnifico. I have a lot of these other games that are in that category, but I find Coimbra is the one I compare it to, and that's continued to hold up. I don't know if 2019 was the first time I played it. Thinking about it, it's possible. Depends when in 2019. Again, I'm trying to think through in November. It's November. These are all November 2019. That's like right before COVID hit. The timeline on these things doesn't make sense to me. I played Sword and Sorcery right before COVID? Rise of Queensdale? I am so thrown off by these timelines, but hey, I track my plays, so if they're in the app, they're in there for a reason. Either way, 2020, November of 2020, let's talk about this. We're starting off with Fear and the Cursed from Rock Band Games. I really liked the Fear and the Cursed. I enjoyed it a lot, while with the caveat that not all games can stick around, and that's one that didn't stick around. But I thought it gave you a good adventure system. Honestly, if I didn't have The Witcher Old World, I'd consider getting it back, but I think The Witcher Old World still gives me the best adventure experience that I so far got to my hands on. So for right now, The Witcher Old World is definitely the one I most prioritize. But then from there, we have The Witcher, we have The Fear and the Curse, we have Obsession. Obsession in 2020. Obsession is a good game. I played it several times. I have not played with the expansions, and I feel bad about that because I feel it's a game that might benefit from the expansions adding to the experience. But Obsession was a game that landed well with me initially, and the more I played it, the more it kind of grew a little stale for me. The cycle of just buying the same play locations and then trying to staff them with the various people and using the right people cards, I really vibed with it at first, and just the more time went on, the more I was like, it's good, but I don't get the same level of fun out of it. It's one that started as a 4 out of 5, and it's definitely moved down for me. At this point, I'd move it to a 3.5 out of 5. The expansions could well change that. I should probably play it on BGA. I haven't played it on BGA at all, and that might reinvigorate my appreciation for it. I still think it's a great game, and I understand why many people like it. For me, it just grew a little stale as time went on. Then there's Cthulhu Wars. I don't know when I got rid of that one, but I did eventually get rid of Cthulhu Wars. Although I also wanted to play Gods of Glorantha, or Glorantha the Gods War, whatever that one's called. They're both similar systems, supposedly, but I never played Glorantha. But I did play Cthulhu Wars, and I understand why so many people love it. For me, I enjoy it. It's a 4 out of 5, and it stays a 4 out of 5. It hasn't gone down for me. It's just one that in a category of games where I'm frequently doing 4.5s and 5s. Area control is one of my favorite genres, and one that I don't play as much as I used to right now, and I want to change that back. But I find that Cthulhu Wars was a good game in a world of great games. I found whenever I played it, I always had a good time, but I always found myself preferring that we played Blood Rage, or I don't know, or Ankh, or Rurik, or any of these other games, Inish, Cyclades, Kemet. There's so many games in this vein that I think do a better job than what Cthulhu Wars did, at least for me. So it's a 4 out of 5, and one that I gave like 5 or 6 plays, but I eventually moved on from it. I eventually decided that I don't need to continue playing it. This Feed the Kraken. Played that in 2020. Keep in mind that 2020 would be where we start moving into where I started covering things as a content creator, because late 2019 was when I started the channel. So in 2020 I played Feed the Kraken. Played it a few times. I think my first play, I'm trying to remember if my first play was online or not. Because I remember I had an online session. This is actually one of the first games I played with Devin. Devin Talks Tabletop. I played In Too Deep with him. I played Feed the Kraken with him. I played a bunch of games with him. But either way, Feed the Kraken was maybe my second interaction with Devin. But I enjoyed Feed the Kraken a lot. And then I played it in person as well. And then I covered it for the channel. But it's one that I found that, and even when I covered it, I both really liked it. And I also said my game group is currently down to like 3 people in person right now because of COVID. And I don't know what the world looks like. And I don't know whether I play Feed the Kraken in the future. Spoiler, I haven't. I'm not playing Feed the Kraken. It's not a game that I'm diving into anymore, because it's a game that I find that, I don't know, I don't have the player count for it. I think it's an excellent game. I think Feed the Kraken is an excellent game that I definitely recommend. Ooh, I should bring it for the Steamforged crew. Steamforged Games, they're a fun group of people that, forgetting their games for a second, just as people, they're a good group of people. I just played Blood in the Clock Tower with them a few times. I know how I feel about Blood in the Clock Tower. I'll be talking about it, but I played with them a few times. They like hit and roll games. I think I still have my copy of Feed the Kraken. I might see if I can get it to England. I think that'd be a good place for it. I'd play it there. Anyways, Feed the Kraken. I think Feed the Kraken is a great game. I think it's a great game, but it really requires a large group of people, and my game group doesn't have that anymore. Nowadays, if we have 5, that's an accomplishment, and Feed the Kraken really plays best at 6+, in my opinion. It plays at 5, it plays at 4 even, but it really plays best at 6+. And so as much as I like Feed the Kraken, it's one that situationally I'm not going to benefit from. Then there's ISS Vanguard, which I have been jiving to dive into this one. I pulled it out last week to let my son play with the spaceships, and I was reminded about how much I like the world that it's doing. My problem is I try to play campaign games 1 at a time. By 1 at a time, I mean like 3 at a time. I try to play campaign games 3 at a time. But I'm currently in the middle of a bunch. I'm in the middle of Oaths one. I'm in the middle of Frosthaven. I'm in the middle of Hoplomachus Victorum still. I'm in the middle of middle of a bunch of campaign games at the moment, and I try not to get into too many at once because I find that just loses focus. So ISS Vanguard is on the chopping block. That sounds bad. ISS Vanguard is on the coming up list of campaign games to dive into at some point, but I just need to prioritize 1 at a time. I do want to play this one. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was great, and I want to dive back in. I thought the exploration was great. I thought the ship phase was amazing. That sense of upgrading, that sense of moving forward. It was a solid game that I'm excited to dive back into, whether solo or with other people. Either way works for me, but I want to play more ISS Vanguard. Then in 2021, November 2021, I played a bunch of games, starting with Rolling Realms. Rolling Realms from Stonemaier Games is a game that I really enjoy. I've played that game like 50 plus times. I just played it this past... Did I log my plays of it? I have to check where I log my plays. I just played it this past week of Rolling Realms. I played a few games of Rolling Realms this past week. I think it's a great game that is accessible. It's variable. You grab these packs of cards. It's just a good game that I did eventually move on from because I played it like 50 plus times. It's one of those games that they have an expansion coming for it or a new pack of it with new content for the game, like a whole bunch of new realms being mixed in. I think they had Planet Unknown in there. I'm excited for it. I like the concept of Rolling Realms. I like the gameplay of the game. I think it's fast. I think it's simple. It's just a little lighter and a little more chaotic than some of the other roll and write games I have. So ultimately, it's just coming up against harder competition. It was a 3.5 for me, and it stays at 3.5, but it's a guilty pleasure 3.5. It's one that I enjoyed more than I think the game is good, but I definitely played it enough times. Like, I played through that full solo mode. You know, I played like 18 holes of golf like 3 times. I don't know. I easily have 50 plus plays logged of Rolling Realms. It's an easy to play game. Then we also have The Adventures of Robin Hood in November 2021. I like The Adventures of Robin Hood, and I held out hope of holding on to the game for the expansion, but eventually I didn't. It's always tricky holding on to a base game waiting for the expansion. I've had that happen a few times. I've had it happen with Paleo, with Adventures of Robin Hood, with Merchants of the Dark Road. There are different times where a game, I'm waiting to see if the expansion will add to it, or in the case of Robin Hood, it's not really adding to it, it's more just more content for the game. But I eventually moved on. I decided that as much as I enjoy The Adventures of Robin Hood, it's one that I'm fine. I don't know, maybe I'll play, I'd love to play, they have the Adventure, the Friar Tuck expansion, whatever it is, they have that expansion, and I'd love to go through that at some point. It was a charming, simple to play game. I played through the whole thing with my daughter. I had a good time with it. I enjoy it. I recommend it. It's more story-driven than mechanics-driven. If you're looking for a mechanically solid game, this is a little lighter than what I'd recommend, but it's one that I think gave me a good story experience. It gave me the feels. The thing I keep pointing at is there was a moment in the game where you had to make a choice that mechanically, there was obviously a better choice. But thematically, I couldn't do it. I couldn't look a imaginary character in the face and say something, and so I didn't. And that was a moment of making me feel, which I was impressed by. This Power Plants from KTPG. Played that in 2021, and I still like Power Plants. It's one that is leaving my collection. This is actually coming from my games leaving the collection shelf, but only after much chagrin around it, because I think Power Plants is an excellent game. I think it's a very solid game. It's just one that I don't pull out and play, but the production is amazing. The accessibility is amazing. It's a little more chaotic than what I typically want in an area control game, which is why it's in the KTPG line. It's a bit more about focusing on just doing things as opposed to like feeling that what you did really led to you winning. So it's a drop more chaotic, but has tons of powers and abilities, has variability to the experience. It is a good game that I wish I was playing more. And I still, like, this is one I refuse to trade or sell, or I'm putting this in the Level Up Retreat library because I want to maintain ownership of this game. I want the ability to pull it back. I enjoy it a lot. Speaking of Adventure Robin Hood and Paleo, we also have Paleo in 2021. Paleo is one that I loved for a long time. I think Paleo was an excellent, excellent game, and I was so into it. The emergent narrative that Paleo told. It told you stories as you played, and I thought that was phenomenally well done. Until I had, 2 bad plays of the game. And bad plays of a game is something I talk about, but bad plays doesn't mean losing. Losing is fine. I don't mind losing games. But sometimes you have an experience in a game which just doesn't give you a good experience, whatever that might mean, where the experience didn't feel. Again, losing is not the key. I lose all the time. I'm not worried about that in the slightest. But I had a few bad plays of Paleo where it just felt like the randomness didn't work for me, and the sense of agency I had wasn't as present. And so a few bad plays of Paleo unfortunately put into that category where looking at it on the shelf, I'm like, I could play you, knowing that I might get a good play, I might not get a good play, or I can pull a different game off the shelf that I know I will get an excellent play of. And unfortunately, once that happened, Paleo did move on. But it's a game I really liked for a long time. I enjoyed it a lot. I think there's a high degree of variability. I think it's one of those games you should pay attention to and you should try. I think it's a different game than what most games are giving you. And so that alone should be worth picking up because you don't get... So many games you can say it's like this, it's like that. Paleo, you can't say it's like this, it's like that. Paleo is telling your story as you try to play cards with a sense of journey and adventure. It is not an easy to explain game, but it's a very good game. It's one that I do recommend, even though I moved on from it eventually. I think I've had good times with it, and I'm glad I've played it. I wish some of the plays had been more consistently good. Speaking of consistently good, we have Mind Management. Mind Management I played for the first time in November 2021, and it's fantastic. And this one has continued to hold up for me. It has not gone down at all. It has been played a little bit less. Like when I first played it, I played it all the time, and now I pull it out less frequently, but it's still a game I try to find opportunities to play. Whether it's at a convention, whether it's at a friend's house, it's one I constantly want to show people to, because it's just a good experience of trying to get in each other's heads, of trying to pin down. It's a hidden movement game. And there are not a ton of hidden movement games out there, and there are some really good ones. Sniper Elite's great, Mind Management great, Beast is great, Spectre Ops is great, Let Us Whitechapel, they're all great. They're all great games. But there's better and there's great. And to me, Mind Management and Beast are amongst the two best ones in the genre, at least for me. Mind Management possibly being the best one. Beast, they're very different in terms of what they do and how they operate, but both absolutely fantastic games that I easily recommend both of these games. Then we have November of 2022, just 1 year ago, and we have a few games. We have Planted, a game that I have a review that I filmed like a year ago. It still hasn't gone up. I keep pushing it off. But I filmed a review for Planted, Phil Walker Harding. It's one that it's an accessible, easy drafting game that I think is a good gateway game for drafting. I still prefer Seven Wonders, which is why for me Seven Wonders is holding out over Planted. But Planted managed to stick around for a few months before eventually, I got a few plays, I reviewed it, I got a few more plays, and I was like, I've seen enough of the game, and I moved on. And again, when I say I reviewed it, the review still hasn't gone up. It's been filmed like a year ago. But Planted is a good game. I definitely recommend that as a solid gateway game from Phil Walker Harding, who's like the king of solid gateway games. Sometimes Gateway Plus. I still have a few Phil Walker Harding games in my collection. Most of them, though, I find I play, I enjoy, and I move on from. We have Mansions of Madness in November of 2022. Dove into this one again, specifically for the sake of doing a play this not that comparison with Cthulhu Death May Die. And so myself, Devin, and Meg, we all played both games. We dove into them, and we got into, some of us have got already, I'd played a ton of Death May Die, I think Meg has played a lot of Mansions of Madness. We all come in with different levels of experience, but we all dove in several more times to both the games to make sure we had enough experience on each. And Mansions of Madness, I tried to give it a fair shake. I was like, it's 5 years later, let's see if this is one that maybe I wasn't in the right space for this kind of game when I played it in 2018. My opinion did not change at all, unfortunately. Maybe not at all. It might have gone up a marginal notch. Like it was probably a 2 in 2018, and it went up to a 2.5 in 2022. But it's a game that I actively would prefer not to play. I would prefer not to spend time in Mansions of Madness. I don't get a good sense from it. I tried giving it a shot again. I tried coming back to it. Sometimes that does help. Sometimes giving a game time and space and letting yourself change or develop or grow as a gamer can be enough. But for Mansions of Madness, for me, it wasn't. I recognize it's a great game. It's not a great game that works for me. And so, we did a play this, not that. You can check it out. As if it's not clear, I recommend Cthulhu Death May Die immensely, and Mansions of Madness, not for me. There's also Keystone North America. Keystone North America, which I played the prototype a while ago. This is my first time playing the final game in 2022, and I love it. I think it's got an excellent solo mode. I think it's got an excellent head-to-head experience. I think it's just a good game of tableau building, not really tableau building, but you're building out a personal tableau, but it's not typical tableau building. You're placing cards down. You're trying to score as optimally as you can. I think it's a good system that I definitely recommend if you like that kind of game. Cascadia, Calico. If you like those point scoring optimization games, I think Keystone North America is one that you should try out. And again, I think the solo mode as well is an excellent challenge. I love the solo mode of Calico, Cascadia, Verdant, all of those. They give you an iterative solo mode to go through, and I think Keystone North America hits that as well. A strong recommendation for me, and one that definitely holds up. We also have My Little Everdell. My Little Everdell, got this one in 2022, played this one a few times with my kids, and I enjoy it, but I don't think it hits the table that much. It's an interesting one because I like it a lot. It's not going anywhere, but it is a little heavier. Not necessarily heavier, thematically, I don't know. Thematically, it doesn't pull my kids in as much. It's one that if I suggest, they'll play, but they don't ask for it themselves, which means it is in a weird space where it's giving a Everdell vibe to kids, and I think it's a great game, and my kids enjoyed it a lot. When I first got it, I played with them, they all had fun, but just over time, they don't request that one. They request other games, and that's always an interesting spot to be in when you're a game that's designed for kids, but my own kids don't request it, so I still like My Little Everdell. It's not going anywhere yet, but it is one that might leave someday if my kids don't ask for a game, and I'm not suggesting it to them because they have so many games they do ask for. Why should I push my own preferences on them? I already curate the collection to be games that I'm happy to play with them for the most part. And so yeah, it's one that I do recommend. I think it's a great game. I can't speak 100% to the mindset of a 7-year-old or 10-year-old or whatnot, but for whatever reason, maybe it's just not front and center, but they are not asking for that one as much, which is the only caveat worth noting around that. So great game. Not getting played as much as I would like. And lastly, we have Elden Ring. Elden Ring, played this one in 2022, Steamforged, and it's one that I am looking forward to tabling the final version of the game. Dark Souls was a game that was not as much for me. Like, I've played the Dark Souls system from Steamforged, didn't work for me. I found it was way too grindy for the experience. And Elden Ring, always with the caveat that I played the game for like 3 hours. That is not a review, that is a first impressions. And first impressions do change. There are some games that, like, I mean, Dark Souls is a game that, for me, 3 hours in I already knew where I stood in it. But something like Bard Sung is an interesting one, because Bard Sung, 3 hours into Bard Sung, I was probably stronger on it than I was by the time I was 15 hours in. So not all games hit the same way at 2 hours in, at 3 hours in, at 10 hours in, at 15 hours in. Games hit differently. So this is not a review, but I am excited for it. I do want Elden Ring on my table. I do want to dive into it. I would say that Elden Ring and Resident Evil are my 2 favorite games from Steamforged. I like a lot of the systems that they have. I like Monster Hunter World. I think it's fun. I enjoy the new Horizon Zero Dawn. That one's fun. But I think Resident Evil and Elden Ring are the 2 that hit the best from their systems for me. And so I am excited to dive into Elden Ring when it does show up on my table. And that is your Where Are They Now? 5 years of games in November, 5 years of touching base on certain titles, how they're holding up, and seeing where they fare nowadays. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and move on to the next video or whatever else I'm doing after this. And as always, until next time, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co., and I hope you have a good one.